Blender 2.8 beta came out, and I will show you how you can model, wig, animate and import your character in Unity. And let's just start with the UI. The UI looks some kind of familiar, but there are some slight differences. For example, the views can't be split anymore so easily, so you have to go to the corner here to split the views, or you can use the white mouse button and say split or join area, and then you can split or join the views. So that's the first difference. The second one is the panel on the right here, the properties panel. They are now on the left side instead of the top one. But the buttons are basically the same. If you want to switch the mode, you can do it here. It's object mode, edit mode, and so on. If you want to change how it's rendered, so for example, this is a wire renderer. This is a solid renderer. Here it's textured, also materials applied, and here it's, I guess it's some kind of render it. Exactly, and the renderer changed. Now we have the eevee renderer, the workbench, and the cycles renderer. So cycles is for non-real-time rendering, for if you want to have a good picture, a good movie. The workbench renderer is, I think, for sculpting or something like that, so you can't really apply textures and other things. So you can model, but you can't really use materials here. And the eevee renderer is a new real-time renderer. So you are missing the Blender renderer because it's gone now. You can't use it anymore. For me as a Unity developer, that makes it a little bit more complex because I have to spend a little bit more time creating my material, because I have to use these nodes, but I can't export them and use it in Unity. So materials are not that important. I get a preview, but I have to rebuild them in Unity anyway. So we will use the eevee renderer real time because we are making games, and therefore the real-time renderer is the right choice for us. So you will notice if you press N, the panel will pop up here, and it's not that big anymore. So what we will really miss is a background. You can still set location, rotation and scale, but the background isn't there anymore. So how do we start if we can't use the background and we have a reference image? Very easy, you go to add image and there you go, background, or a reference image if you want to. Okay, I use a dog, here it is. Okay, I don't want it like that. I go press 1, you see the buttons always there. Add image reference dog. There we go, this is a dog, and that's how we can use it. If I press F12 to render it, you will notice the reference image won't be rendered. So we have a lot of collections here, or one collection, and we can create new collections. And for example, we can create a background collection and drag and drop the empty here. It's pretty cool because then I can just disable it, and I can use it for multiple game objects. Okay, a short introduction. You will switch between two modes in general. It's the object mode and the edit mode. The other ones are more advanced. So as a beginner, you always use those two. In the object mode, you choose the object you want to change, for example, the cube. So there are 3 buttons. You can G, grab it, R, rotate it, or S, scale it. In the new UI, you can find it also on this left side. So here you have the transform, and you can move it, rotate it, and scale it. So it's a little bit easier for beginners because you have all those buttons here. And I will try to use the menus as often as I can because the shortcuts can be quite confusing in the beginning. Okay, we start with a cube. If you want to rotate the rotate the view, just click the middle mouse button and rotate it. If you do not have the cube, then go to Add Mesh Cube, and then you have it. I will switch into edit mode. You can also switch with the tab and select those 3. Just hold shift down, select all those 4 vertices and press delete and say delete vertices. So we basically have a plane, and this is what I wanted. So I can press A to select all my vertices, or double A, and then I have selected these vertices. Press 1, so I go to orthographic view. It's also possible up here, so this is the switch between those parallel and orthographic views, and you can click on the axis you want to use. You can also use a numpad 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on. You switch the views. With 5 you switch between parallel and orthographic view, and with 1, 3 and 7 you go to every axis. I just grab all the vertices and I can use scale, as already mentioned, grab and rotate to position my plane as I wish. So for example here, I think this is a good one. And then I can select some of the vertices, for example these 2, with shift. And the next most important button after rotate, scale and grab is the extrude. You can find it on mesh, extrude, for example, extrude edges and vertices, but you have to remember the shortcut also, it's E, and you will use it very often. So now we have rotate, grab, scale and extrude, and this is all we need to just model the stock. And you just click 2 vertices, say extrude, and then you go for it. Just scale, rotate, grab 1, a little bit more like this, grab a few, extrude, scale, and just follow the shape of the dog. Sometimes you have situations like these. You have a vertex here, 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 and here. And you just mark all the 4 and press F to make a face. You can also use this menu, vertex, and new face. These are all the vertex operations. Very interesting is merge vertice. For example, if I have 2 vertices like these 2, I can press M or Alt M and say, okay, merge at center, and then these 2 are merged. And I can always go back. Another tool you could use is a knife. You press K, and then you can add new lines to your dog. For example, this one. Press Enter to apply it. And I will just use these lines because I think these will help me later on. So now select all the vertices here. All the vertices on the border, and make sure that you do not select faces. For example, here I have some faces, and in case of a face I just add a cut. For example, this one, and I deselect these vertices, so now it looks better. I go to the other view, here's a side view, and just press E and just move it to the middle. So now we have a half dog. We go back to the object mode and select a modifiers. Modifier we are adding is just a mirror modifier. Use the axis so that it looks like one dog. For example, this looks pretty okay. Now the dog is a little bit big. I'll just select all these vertices. And move them, for example, to here. Now I can also select all these vertices on the side and move them outside just a little bit. So now it looks more like a dog, more or less. Maybe just some vertices that have to move to the right position. The next modifier we will use is a subdivision surface, and as you can see, your model is a little bit bigger and it's not so round, and if you use the subdivision surface modifier, your complete model will look a little bit more smooth, and this is what we can use right now. We just have to divide these feet, I guess. So let's continue here. We select the feet. Move it outside. And there we go. The dog has 2 feet now. We can close up all the faces by selecting 4 vertices and press F. And then we're slowly making faces. So this is my dog right now, and it has a quite high poly count. You can see it down here, vertices 917. We can add a decimate modifier to bring it down to just a few polygons, for example, like this. And you actually have to do it if your game wants low and you're on a mobile device, you have to really go low. If you have a high-end PC or making high-end games, you can leave it as high as you want. So I will go for maybe 320 polys or 500 faces. That's still quite a lot, but then we can easily see what's going on. So let's texture our model. I will add a new view. It's the UV editor, and open up a texture. So this is a texture I created from a photo. It's not ideal, but I will just show you the technique. So we go to edit mode, and the first thing that we have to do is mark all, press U, and say unwrap. And here you can see it looks a little bit like our dog. We can also try Smart UV project, and then Blender is trying to cut our UV so that we have the tiles here. But you noticed the dog is white. So this is new in Blender 2.8. We don't have the workbench renderer anymore. So what we have to do is we firstly go to the rendered mode, and this is fast now thanks to the eevee renderer, but unfortunately we have to create a complete material with graph and so on. So we have our material here, and we have to edit this by the shader editor. Don't be afraid, it's not that complex. We just get rid of the principal BSDF and add diffuse BSDF. You can also find it here. Add shader and diffuse. And we will add a texture, just the image texture, put it here. We select our dog, and then we just connect the color here and the BSDF to the surface. And there we go. We can see our model is now rendered correctly. So if I scale it down, you can really see the parts. Okay, I give you the moment to really deep dive into it because you have to do it a lot. So this PNG is not transparent. If you want to do it with transparent PNGs, your workflow will look like this. You still have the image, you will have the diffuse BSDF, but then it goes into a mixed shader and then into the material output. And you have to add a transparent BSDF, and those two shaders go into the material output, and the factor is the alpha of the image. So if you have drawn the line wrong, like this one, you can't delete it, so or mark it. You just have to draw a new line, or just grab the line here and put it somewhere where there's no connector. So if you have problems reaching this rendered button here, you can just hover the menu bar and scroll, and there you go. Now I want to mark some seams. These are the cutting edges of the UV. For example, I would like to have one around the head, one here at the front, and one on the tail. I press E. Sorry. Just undo this. Control E and say mark seam. Mark everything, say unwrap, and there we go. Just drag it somewhere where it's only fur. And now I want to do something different with the head. I just select all the vertices of the head, and I switch from perspective to orthographic, and just look in the same angle as the dog is doing here in the picture into my editor camera. And what I then do is I press U and not unwrap. I choose project from view, and then it has exactly the same view as here in the editor, and then it's easier for me to just place it on the right angle here. So there we go, and you can see it's actually easier for me to just put it right. So I think this looks okay. There we go, this is my dog. And now we have to rig the dog. Therefore we add an armature with a single bone. Make sure it's in the right collection. And there we have it. Just make sure the location is 0, 0, 0. And then we can go into the edit mode. And I like to lay this bone down here. Here you can see it. This is the bone. I call it the wood bone. And there we go. And now we can add some bones to it. For example, with Shift D, we can duplicate the bone. And one thing you should make is the X-ray setting. And it's down here. This is the Armature setting. And in display you can't find X-ray anymore because it's now in front, and it's a better name, I guess. So yeah, they called it X-ray in the past, and now it's in the front. So we select our bone. This is our backbone. Maybe we call this backbone or back, and we should parent this to the root bone. So we select this bone, the other one, press Control P and say make parent keep offset, and then we see the backbone is under the root bone. And then we can, just create some more bones, maybe one bone for the head and one bone for each ear. Let's create the tail. So I'm always using E to extrude, so instead of extruding, it really creates a new bone. Just press the numpad so that you can always see where the bones are going. For example, here, these two and these two for the legs. We just have to bring them down here. Yeah, down to the knees. For the shoulder, it's a little bit different. If you grab the bone here and move it, they are connected. You can parent them with Control P, so you can unparent them with Alt P and say clear parent. Maybe select the complete bone, P, clear parent, there we go. And the other one, clear parent. And now we should able to, yes, move them individually. There we go. You see them in the hierarchy here. now we can bring them back to this parent by Control P and keep offset. And then the offset stays the same. We should do this for these two as well. P, keep offset. So you can see these connected lines, and the only line that should point to the root node is a line from the back. And now we can continue by creating these last two bones for the right and the left hand. Here we can also improve the bone structure. So this is a very basic bone structure. Maybe I will add one here. The next thing is just rename them as they are. For example, this is a leg on the right side, or the upper leg, and so on, the lower leg, and just continue. There we go. Now we have an armature and we have a cube. I call this cube the dog mesh. And they are not connected right now, so when you select the armature, you notice there's a new mode, it's object mode, where it just can move everything, or the edit mode, you just move one bone, and the pose mode, where you some kind of move the bone, but it's a little bit different. You can't really rotate. You can grab it, yes, and you can scale it, yes, but the rotation is very weird. Seems like they are connected, yes, and this is what it should be. I just reset them. You can also rotate everything. Then select everything, press Alt G and Alt R to reset everything. So, because the edit mode is a default pose, some kind of a T pose, and in the pose mode you can have every pose and you can reset it. This is for the animation, so now we have to connect our dog mesh and the armature. Therefore we have to just take our dog mesh and drop it into the armature by parenting it. And we do it the same way as we also parent our bones. We just select the dog first, and then we select the armature. Make sure you're in object mode, otherwise it won't work. Control P, and then you can parent this. Now you have to choose. So I would recommend you to just create it with empty groups or with automatic weights. So I will use automatic weights, and then Blender also calculates everything we need for the weights of the bones. Oh, and this is pretty new. Normally your dog should be under the armature. Now there's only a connection, I guess, with a modifier. Yes. So we just have a modifier here under the... I have to select the dog in the object mode. Object mode, dog, modifier. And there we go. We have an armature modifier, and this is our armature. The dog doesn't have to be the parent, or the armature doesn't have to be the parent of the dog anymore. Now in the pose mode of the armature we can move the bones. You will notice that it's somehow strange if I move one leg, for example. And this is because we didn't apply one of our modifiers, so it's just mirrored as before. So we select the dog and apply our mirror modifier here. The mirror modifier disappears, and if we go to the edit mode, we see we can edit both sides separately. So this one is applied, and I just repeat the parenting of the dog. And now I can go to the pose mode and move the feet individually. Okay, now we go ahead and add some inverse kinematics. So we maybe copy the root bone, rotate them here, and these are some poles. We will come to that a little bit later. Just make these bones here. Duplicate them here so that they point to the knee. Make sure the knees are bent this way and that they all are under the root bone. And I name them knee front left. Next up, in the edit mode, select all the feet, say Alt P, and clear the parent. Now they are not in the hierarchy anymore, and we will re-add them by selecting the root bone and say Ctrl P, keep offset. So now every bone that is relevant for the inverse kinematics is now connected here, and we can go to the pose mode and add some constraints. So I select this one and say add bone constraint inverse kinematic. The target is the armature and the hand white. So this bone here is the target and the pole is the knee. Knee front white. It looks weird now, but we have to increase the chain length to 2, and now it looks better. I can select this bone and move it, and everything moves accordingly. So if it still looks off, you have to adjust the pole angle. For me, in this case, 180 is the white pole. It looks great. Let's repeat it. Add bone constraint inverse kinematics as a target. I choose the armature pole target as well. Now we have the left hand, so I say hand left and knee front left. The iterations to, the chain length to 2. And I will check it. It looks quite nice. So with the knee we can set where the knee is, and to reset everything in pose mode, Alt G, Alt R, and everything is okay. So let's do it with the last two and then we are done wigging. Okay, now we want to animate our dog, therefore we create a new view. And we select dope sheet. And in the dope sheet we go to the action editor, create a new action, causes action rest. Now we have to choose every bone that we want to animate. I choose all. We have to choose our key chain, and this is here, keying set. This is location and rotation. We want to record the rotation and location. Make sure to have the time line here with this key, and then you go with the mouse in your scene here, press I, and then you have everything in this rest mode. So with the right mouse button you can select, for example, skip to frame 20, press I, and then you have your animation right. The only thing that you should set is end, and this to 20, and there we go. This is our rest animation. Let's do a more advanced one. We create a new one by pressing this button. We call this walk. We just delete the keyframes here, and then we create our walk animation. It should be 50 frames long, and this is our first frame. We just say okay. This is our first frame here. I'll make sure that everything looks right. No? If you want to automatically record your changes, press this button here. And then you can start editing without having any problems. So that's it for the animation. It doesn't look quite right, but it's just for the sake of showing you how to do it. The last thing is the export. Just go to File, Export, FBX. Make sure that you select the dog and the armature, and then just make sure to have the mesh and the armature selected here, and then you can export it as an FBX file. In Unity itself, we create the texture and the material besides that, so the material gets the albedo, and we import this walk and rest animation. Make sure to have the generic wig. Do not import the materials. I would recommend you to recreate them, and leave the settings as they are, so you can drag and drop the dog into your scene. Just apply the material, and there you go. You have a bunch of dogs from Blender 2.8 to Unity. So if you want to see more, please leave a like and subscribe. See you next time.